Fail fast, win big. What if I told you there was a formula of how to make money by failing? Okay, have you heard me? What if I told you there's a formula of how to make money by failing more? See, we do that at paw.com. We come out with a lot of products, and I would say out of 10 products, 8 out of those 10 fail. So we cut those quickly, but 2 of them hit it. Scale those big. That's what we're talking about today on today's show on Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed. We're going to go in deep. We're going to figure it out. How can failure help you be successful? How can failure make you money? How does that work? If you don't know, this is a show that's live on Clubhouse. We do this every Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern. And you're welcome to join us. You're welcome to join us on the live show. Come on stage, ask questions, and become part of the conversation. You can listen to a TikTok video, or you can actually just go online and talk to the authors, experts, and myself and my co-host Michelle Van Tilburg. And on this show, we really try to crack the code of what it takes to be a serial entrepreneur, what it takes to be successful, and we think one of the key ways to be successful as an entrepreneur is to learn how to fail fast and scale big. We want to understand what works and what doesn't work. And then when we do that, we really can be successful at launching new products and generating a huge amount of sales and profits. All right, Michelle, welcome to the show. My co-host here, she's on online as well, and just wanted to get from you, Michelle, what you think about this concept of just failing quickly and making money.
This is music to my ears, Colin, not just from software, but all aspects, I think, of business. Because I don't think, I know people spend a lot of time, too much time, like bantering back and forth, hypothesizing, or making up, which is even worse, what's going to work. You don't know what's going to work. I don't know about you, but I don't know what's going to work in most businesses. I think a lot about it. I do research, but you don't know until you get out there and you really try. And that's where this really comes into play for me is like we have to test. So when you say fail more, win faster, people, that is about testing. In this world that we live in with AI and e-commerce and all this massive amount of data that we have at our fingertips, that's the name of the game, Colin, don't you think?
And I think that you can actually fail more as long as you keep your costs low. And so let's use the example of the e-commerce business, paw.com. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's use this example. So we've come out with dozens of products. Maybe if you're looking at product lines, maybe about 5 or 6 product lines per year, different concepts that we come out with. And what we do, though, in order to mitigate this, is sometimes we'll even advertise or promote a product before we've even spent a dollar on manufacturing. We have an example of a product that we're going to be launching at paw.com. It's a very cool product. By the way, Michelle and I, we spent 3 years working on this product, and we couldn't find the right materials to do it. We finally discovered the right materials. We think it's going to be a big hit. Okay. We don't know it's going to be a big hit. We don't know if it's going to sell. So we've elected to set up a Kickstarter. It's going to come out in about a month. It's a Kickstarter for a new product that no one's ever seen before. No one has ever seen a product like this in the pet space before. Okay. We've set up a Kickstarter. We're investing. I think it's now. We have, oh, it's funny because we. I'm going to disclose some information here, but we're investing $4,000 in a Kickstarter video. But if we hit our target, the company gets paid an $8,000 bonus. And we negotiated that because we wanted to get a lower fee for this particular campaign. Now, if this hits on Kickstarter, then we know we have something, and we believe there's some patentable elements to this product as well. Then we know we have something, and then we can scale it big. But we've had products that have come out in the past, and again, I think it's 8 out of 10 products that just come to market, and we really just don't get the traction on. So if we invest, let's say 10,000, $20,000 to get to a point where we say, it's just not getting the traction. Let's kill it and let's move on to something else. That's where we're at with this new project. Well, we've got $4,000 invested in a video. We've got a couple of years of R&D. There's been a lot of going back and forth, working with manufacturer, but that's it. We don't go out and order 5,000 units and hope they're going to sell. No, we've got to prove our concept. If we can prove the concept works, that the demand for the product's there, then that is the key to scaling. And when I talk about proving in e-commerce world, talk about proving how products work, the products not only have to sell to your existing customers, but you also have to be able to advertise that product, get a low enough cost of acquisition so that you make a profit on every sale. And if you do that, you can scale to infinity. That's it. You can go as far and fast as you possibly can through manufacturing and sales, as long as every order is sold profitably and you're able to scale the advertising as well. So that's the second side of it, is scaling big. So when you get 8 out of 10, you cut them down quickly, but the 2 out of 10, Pod.com is a good example, they become multi-million-dollar streams. We've been the company that pioneered memory foam pup rugs for your house. They look gorgeous. We've been the company that pioneered waterproof blanket protectors for your couch, your bed, your car. We're the company that pioneered the two-seater memory foam dog bed for your car as well. And we continue to come out with a lot of new innovations. Some of them go, and most of them don't. So we just got to know how to cut it off quickly and then scale big. Michelle, you're the CEO of paw.com. I'd love to get from your perspective and what you think about how this model works and how it's become a formula for success at paw.com.
Yeah, it absolutely is. We're not a digital product, we're a consumer goods product, actually a dog product. And let me tell you, it's like manufacturing and shipping in and shipping out to customers and then paying all the marketing, et cetera, that's associated with getting the clients to buy them. It's extremely expensive. It's an extremely big gamble at any level, if you ask me, because I'm all about being responsible with the company's money to like order or put a lot of effort, let's just say, I'm talking not human capital necessarily, but hard cash into this, any kind of products that you're not absolutely positive are going to yield a return. We know, we've seen people do it. So for us, it's absolutely critical that we do our upfront research, talk to customers, look at the market, et cetera. And then we have to be able to order in what we call test quantities so that we can obviously test the concept. Colin, it's like getting stuck with a warehouse full of products, or even, let's just say, even if it's several containers worth of products, the cost doesn't just stop at producing it and getting it in your warehouse. These warehouses are extremely expensive. The storage, the real estate is extremely expensive. It's shelf space on your website. It's messaging that you're wasting to your customers. All these things are extremely valuable, and it is already a very highly compressed environment, meaning highly compressed. The margins are very thin. You start making stupid mistakes, you're dead. People, you're dead. It is absolutely critical that you have a mechanism, a way to quickly test products, test concepts, so that you can get to market faster, or maybe don't even go to market, right? You learn beforehand and you allocate towards items that people actually want to buy, and don't waste all your time and energy. I saw a company, an e-commerce company that we all know good and well, spend, gosh, Colin, I think not only did they spend tons of money on the product, but they spent over a year wasted on valuable efforts to try to sell something that wasn't going to work. So we got to like really understand how to test. We have to really understand how to test and then go from there and learn, sell things that work.
And you also don't want to wait too long, Michelle, right? Because if you have a hit product and you're not on Amazon, someone else is going to jump on Amazon and take your success away from you. So when you've got a something that can go, You have to have your distribution channels lined up. You have to know what you're doing. Your product's hitting. Okay, so let's get into Amazon. Let's get into Wayfair. Let's get into Chewy. Let's drop it in. We're talking about paw.com here. Obviously, it's more a pet related business, but we want to scale very quickly before the competitors jump on copy and then they start dumping the market. Though they start competing on Amazon. I've seen it in the past with this company that we've had products in the past where Amazon's on or paw.com is they launch and design a, or sorry, design and launch a product and someone else grabs it and launches it on Amazon before paw.com launches it on Amazon. And these are our product designs. And some of them we get patents for, some we don't. So this depends on which type of products that you really develop here. So I think having a strategy to roll out a success is equally as important as cutting those failures fast. Am I right, Michelle? Am I on
Yeah,
the right track?
I'm here. I'm here. Yeah,
Yeah, am I on the
absolutely.
right track that the scaling side has got to be worked
Yes,
out in advance? You can't just, oh, I got a hit. And next thing you know, there's a million other companies that have this stuff.
that's right. There's so many components to it, and it all revolves around being strategic, looking at the data, and doing some testing, Colin.
Yeah, I agree. We're lucky today because we have a guest speaker who we don't normally have on. He is our co-host on the Complete Entrepreneur. He comes in from Australia. He's actually here live at Startup Club Studios at our incubator here in Fort Lauderdale. His name's Michael Gilmore. He's been traveling for a few weeks. We haven't done the show, but we'll be back up and running with that show pretty quickly. And that particular show talks a lot more about the human element of being an entrepreneur. Part of the success formula for entrepreneurship is the human side of it. And I think this topic of fail fast, scale big has a human element to it, Michael. I believe that it's hard for an entrepreneur to come up with an idea, to launch that idea, and even if the market shows there's not enough popularity for that product, that's just not a hit, their ego gets in the way. And more often than not, we've seen companies failure and not scale success. I can tell you horror stories at paw.com and many other companies I'm involved with where the entrepreneur, they just get too tied into this concept and their ego's on the line and they got to make it work. And the reality is the market sometimes speaks. Michael?
Colin, look, thank you for being on the show. This is a show I've always wanted to be on, but being in Melbourne, Australia, it end up being like 3 o'clock in the morning or something. So being here in Startup Club Central as such is just awesome. It's fantastic. Really, thank you for having me on the show. But yeah, I completely agree with you, Colin, and also what Michelle has just said. The number one rule I have is this: entrepreneurs should not fall in love with their products. They should fall in love with their bank account. And what I mean by that is sometimes you develop something and you come up with a great idea and it works. That's fantastic. That's exciting. And sometimes it just doesn't. In fact, more often than not, it just doesn't. The biggest challenge for an entrepreneur is to overcome their desire to ignore the data coming in and to pursue that bad product anyway. If the market has spoken and the market has said that's just a bad product, right? And you've really given it the best go you possibly could, and you come back to it and say, oh, if I just tweak it this way. No, stop tweaking and go along and build something different or whatever. I'm a firm believer that if the market speaks, then listen, really listen. But sometimes the market may say, you just need to do the tweak. That's fine. They'll suddenly all buy it. That's great. That's good news. But look at your bank account. Love your bank account before you fall in love with your product. That would be a golden rule for me. And that's a really bitter pill for a lot of entrepreneurs, Colin, because they can't help themselves. They fall in love with their business and they put attach their own self-worth to it or their product or something like that. And if that fails, then they have failed. Let me tell you right now, the journey of an entrepreneur is one of failure. And then every now and then you get a success. That's a journey of entrepreneurship for many people. And the thing to do is to overcome the failure. And sometimes it's just a matter of just knuckling down and pushing through and trying it again, whatever that new product or new thing will be, and really listen to the market. But as a part of all that, always listen to the data. Look at that information coming back and really begin to understand it. And my golden rule when I sit down with entrepreneurs, they should know their numbers, their key performance indicators for whatever it is they're selling, whether it's online business, whether it's physical, whatever it is. What are the key performance indicators? Is that when you wake up in the morning, it's the first thing you look at. For me and my own businesses, I have a series of reports I look at every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And I look at those reports and they're embedded into my DNA now because I've looked at them so much. And I know those KPIs beyond a shadow of a doubt. And that becomes really what my guiding light as such. When they go out, it means the market's trying to talk to me. The market's trying to say something to me. And my job as an entrepreneur is to listen to what the market is saying and respond accordingly. That's my job. Because you think about it, business is actually really easy. Find out what the market wants, then give it to them. That's really what business is all about. Listen to the market and give it to them. If you don't listen to the market, then you may be trying to give them something they don't want. Anyway, that's a
Michael, now
few
what
thoughts
about
on
the
that.
emotional component here? Like we
Oh,
talk about
it's tough. It's
the
a tough
failure,
journey.
right? Because you fail at a product, and you're gonna be embarrassed. Like all your friends and family are gonna say, "I told you."
No, but my view is this: if I fail at a product or something like that, and then because that hasn't failed, all I've discovered is, oh, that's not the way to go. Tick that off the list. Now I'll try the next way. Yeah, it's and too many people are associating the failure of a product with the failure of themselves. No, you're an entrepreneur. Your job is to discover the failures, and your job is to be able to nut out as an entrepreneur and solve that puzzle so it becomes a success.
It reminds me of the Elon Musk when they first launched the rockets and it blew up in six
Correct.
seconds, and they're like, "Yay, we succeeded! We got 6 seconds." It wasn't this
Correct.
like failed.
Correct. I've said to them, the moment you're too scared to launch something because of failure is the moment the company is doomed. You've just got to push the launch button and just see because one of the interesting things you bring up Elon Musk and SpaceX and everything like that, all the recent failures of their rocket and all that sort of stuff, they were never caused by use cases they knew about. They're always caused by use cases they didn't know anything about. So they've learned a huge amount. And that's one of the things I get inspired at by someone like a company like SpaceX. They're not too afraid to launch. So just recently, we've had a whole new platform we've been working a long time on, and we're launching it. And in a team Microsoft Teams meeting, had all the different team members there lined up. And I said, "Are we good for launch?" And I went to each one of them. They say, "Yes, we're good for launch." So we launched and we released it to the market. In the space of about 2 or 3 hours, we learned so much and we had to fix a whole lot of things, all that sort of stuff. But gee, we learned so much by launching. You just got to launch it. So this whole fear of failure is it's one where don't view it as a don't view it as a failure. View it as this is my opportunity to learn really fast. This is my opportunity because I'm suddenly going to get so much data coming through that I'll be able to analyze this and learn so fast and listen to what the market is telling me, listen to what the customers are saying, really hear them speak in the best way they know how, and that's with their wallets. Over to
Yeah,
you, Colin.
I like that. I think it's really is a learning experience. Failure. In the book Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, I used a line which I've often repeated is that startup failures are the scars of our past that guide us through our new ventures. Like they really are. That's how we learn how to be successful by actually failing. And by the way, by learning how other people failed as well. That's one reason why the book Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat featured dozens of stories of failures, including my own personal failures. and some of them were really big, unfortunately. But thankfully, there were enough successes that made up for those failures. I will say this that, and this is in the book as well, that it's important when you set off on your path to build a startup that you think about what we call in the book a stage gate. And this is a SMART goal, a specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound goal that in this at this particular stage you've hit this goal, and if you do not hit, you either pivot or kill it. Okay, you either pivot or kill it. So a goal might be I'm going to have an MVP for a product, minimum viable product. I'll have it ready by quarter one, end of quarter, and I like to get specific, even a specific time of a day, like really try to be specific. Another MVP, I'll have 10 distributors by this date. Another one could be I'll have 100 customers by this date. Another one could be I'll have 1,000 customers using the platform who don't pay any money by this particular date. It's very important to try to establish the stage gate because when you do that, you're now giving yourself the room to be able to maneuver to hit that stage gate versus on a every day some are you there yet, are you there yet, are you there yet, when the people around you, when the naysayers, when they're around you and they're saying this ain't gonna work, you say guys, just hold back for a minute, and what I'd like you to do is I'm gonna hit this particular goal on this particular date, and until I miss that goal on that date, hold back. Give me the room to be able to do this. And that's an emotional, important concept as well. It's emotionally very difficult when you always worried about failure and you haven't even given yourself the chance. And so we talk a little bit more. Obviously, we don't just talk about the stage gate in the book. We talk about how to actually get to that stage gate successfully through a four sticky note business plan. I won't go into the detail right now, but there are a number of things you can do to ensure that you mitigate the failure or you maximize your chances of success to get there. But fundamentally, I want to leave you with this is that if you have an idea and you think it's a good idea, it's smart to put on a stage gate, a particular point in time where if you don't hit it, you either pivot or kill it. And if you do hit it, you have extended time. We're going to want to create the next stage gate. Almost like that car driving game. Back in the day, we'd put quarters in. You're driving a car, and as soon as you go through the gate, you got extended time. And that's what we're talking about when it comes to a startup. Concepts in the book, try to pick it up, start, scale, exit, repeat. If you haven't already done so, you really might want to do that. Last Friday, we just won the Axiom Business Book Awards for entrepreneurship. We won gold medal, and it was such an honor to and surprise to see that we had won that because we had applied for it, I think, like a year and a half ago, and we just thought we didn't win last year, and I guess we must have missed the deadline or something. But the Axiom Business Book Awards is one of the most prestigious in the world, and we won the gold medal for entrepreneurship for 2025. So the book continues to do very well, and it continues to be a source of information to help you as an entrepreneur start, scale, exit, and repeat, and maybe sometimes start, fail, but hopefully you're not going to start, scale, fail. Because once you start going deep, once you start scaling that business and investing a lot, you've got a valuable company. Now, a lot of companies fail at the scale stage, and there's a lot of things that we need to do. We need to really study our stuff and really understand the importance of the systems and the KPIs and the people and the personality profiles and how we lead this particular organization to succeed at scale, or else it'll fall apart. The vast majority of companies in the United States fail to scale. That's just a reality.
Yeah,
Michelle.
I'm going to challenge something. We're sitting here saying fail, but is it fail if you learn something really fast to get to where you need to be to succeed? I'm going to say it's actually not a failure.
It's not a failure at all.
It's not a failure,
Yeah.
and it's painful. And I think the hardest thing sometimes about getting in that mindset is not feeling like you're a failure. So I know that's something I personally struggle with. I don't like to fail. Come on, let's be honest here. Like most of us here, we wouldn't be here if we weren't like high functioning, motivated people. I don't like the idea of failing. So for me, what I have to do is I have to continuously mentally recalibrate the way I'm thinking. Like I have to think like I'm doing XYZ. I'm doing this test. I'm doing this to get us out of this situation. If I sit here and I say to myself lots of negative thoughts, it's not a good thing for me mentally. So I encourage people to reframe the way you're thinking about it. You're not failing. There are many bumps on the way to success, and there is no clear, one, even, easy path to success, period.
People are ready to pounce so fast on you too when you fail. Like they're ready to just, oh, I told you, or and I don't know, maybe it makes them feel better, right? So having a supportive group of people around you, I think that's important. I also talk about not always listening to the yaysayers, people like your mom, because they're always going to support you no matter what. At least I hope your mom will support you. But there are incubators and environments where you can get into. I know Score has mentors, free mentors, and you can increase your chances of success dramatically. In fact, they claim it's 3 times that you can increase your chance of success by getting a mentor, and it's free. But I think this idea that, yeah, you can fail fast, but fail safely too.
What's a failure, Colin? Is if
What?
you never try and you don't get to the success. That's a failure. And you're not going to get there if
Oh,
you
I
don't
see. You're
try.
saying just never even trying.
Yeah, that's a failure to me.
If you don't try, you'll never succeed. Does it really matter? I don't know.
Who cares?
Who who
How do we get
cares?
over that mentally, Michael? How do we
I
really?
agree. My attitude is this: is, and I will say this to some people. It may sound a little bit rude, but I say, how's the view from the cheap seats? In other words, all very well for you. You're sitting there in your 9 to 5 job, whatever, and you're criticizing me and you're laughing at me at trying to make the world a better place. Now, what's it like? What's it like from the cheap seats? Seriously? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to have highs and lows. You guys may like the merry-go-round, but I like the roller coaster. It's just different. So if you go along and say, "Ah, look, he's on the roller coaster. He's on the down part of the roller coaster." You know what? Next to that down part, there's a really great big hill, and that's going to be great. And I'm going to have so much fun up that hill. And that's why I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur because I like to eat life. I like to do whatever I can in life and enjoy it to the maximum. And a part of that is doing the one part, if you ask me, of the world that hasn't been explored, and that's the human creative ambition to do better. And that's what business is. Like the world's been explored and all that sort of stuff. You got satellites going all over the place and everything like that. But you know what? Being a human and being creative and making something out of nothing that other people are prepared to part with their hard-earned cash for, that's amazing. That's the biggest adventure you could possibly ever go on. You know what? Sometimes you're going to have some quotation marks failures, but I'm right there with you, Michelle. There's no such thing as a failure. There's only an opportunity to learn. That sounds like that's just a saying, Michael. Yeah, but it's not. It's the reality of what an entrepreneur does. An entrepreneur is a problem solver. They get in there, they work their rear ends off, and they solve problems. And as Mark Watney said in that wonderful movie, The Martian, he said, "You solve enough problems, you eventually you can come home." Yeah, if you've seen that movie. But it's the same sort of thing. You get in there and you just solve problems. I'm not the CEO of my company. I'm the chief problem solver. That's what I do. I solve problems. And I said this to Colin the other day, where I said to him, just give me some problems. I just need to solve some problems. Whether it's Pour.com or anything else you're doing, I'm here relaxing. I feel a bit out of sorts because I just want to solve problems. Just give me some. I just want some data, please, there, Michelle. Give me some data so I can just pull it apart and everything like that and solve problems. And that's the exciting part of what it means to be an entrepreneur. There's no greater joy than that, if you ask me. And then in the end, someone creates this wonderful scorecard, and it's called the profit and loss. I love the profit and loss. It's like the best score in any sort of game you can possibly ever think of. So at the end of solving all your problems, and then you got this P&L, and your profit, revenue less your expenses equal to your profit. And you know what? The reason why I want to have it more the next month is because it's the best game in town. And it's the most incredible experience as an entrepreneur. Sorry, I'm gushing a bit here, Colin, but it is true. It's in my DNA that we're problem solvers. That, yeah, your topic here, fail more. Oh, you better believe it. Every time I'm failing, I'm solving another problem. And I said this to my team recently. I said to them, the more problems we solve and the faster we solve them puts us so far ahead of the competitors, they'll never catch up. Or a classic example is if I can be twice as efficient and work twice as hard as my competitors, I'll get done in 3 months what it takes them 12 months to do.
Yeah, another way of saying that is the easier it is to solve a problem, the more competition you're going to have. All right,
Correct.
we have a number of people on stage, and if you've failed and or you've scaled and you're in the audience, we'd love to have you on stage. So please raise your hand. It's Friday afternoon. We're talking about how to fail fast and scale big. And we have one of our favorite guests on stage right now, Shadows. I'm curious, Shadows, have you ever failed before?
Of course, I'm human.
Exactly, right? And how does it feel when you fail? Like, how does it impact you and how do you deal with it?
Interestingly enough, what I was actually going to talk about was the word failure. In doing the echoes every day, I tend to dig in a little deeper than most people into words. And words sometimes have a surface level that we kind of look at and go, yeah, okay, that's built into it. But if you go into a little bit deeper, you find a little different perspective. For example, when I did the word swagger, you think of swagger, you think of arrogance, you poppycock type behavior. But it's not. It's confidence. You have the confidence to be able to show off your stuff. Failure carries that tone of shame and go hide in the corner. We're talking about the other perspective and we're saying we need to reframe failure. No, we don't. We just need to own it. Failure doesn't need to be shame. It just simply needs to be we did that and we're moving on.
I agree. And by the way, I was trying to add you as a friend, and I have too many friends, so I had to go delete some more friends. Anyway, welcome to the stage, David. But we're gonna jump over to Joe next. Joe, thank you for coming back on stage. We love having you on stage. And same question to you: is failure something that you've experienced in your life, and how have you used that to try to help you succeed in life?
I would say that failure is the top business model, top template of any company. It should be the risk ledger that dictates what you do. If your customers don't need to go to an outside vendor because the failure modes for them doesn't require them to go to an outside vendor, then what are you solving for your customers? If they can handle it internally, you don't have a product. So they almost need to go to an outside vendor in order to have a solution, you being that solution. So failure mode, I think, is the top template of any company. I dropped a link in chat. Failure mode effect analysis is, at least when doing engineering, it's how you change the scope of projects. For instance, you learn that something fails in a certain way, then you add a new part, you add a new bumper rail, you create new guidelines for what the offer that you're making is.
So fail mode is that like demon mode, right? I don't know. It's a little bit different, but remember from Elon Musk's book, you heard about this concept called demon mode, and I like the way you phrase that fail mode.
Failure
Is that an
mode,
actual philosophy out there, or is that something
absolutely.
that
It's an
you just
ISO.
framed?
No, this is an international standard of operations for manufacturing, is failure mode effect analysis. Now, food and beverage might call it HACCP, hazard and critical control points, but they're analyzing their manufacturing of food and how could you not make the food safely. Then that creates different standard operating procedures. It changes what they do for preventative maintenance plans. It changes which instruments at their facilities they have to calibrate. It all comes from a failure mode effect analysis.
Yeah. I think you bring up an interesting thing. If I can jump in there, Colin, Joe. The other part of it is giving your team permission to fail. You have to give people in your team, if you want to have develop an elite team, a team which is like really powering forward, you have to give them the permission to fail. Then it's okay to fail. And by giving them their permission to fail, then they'll begin to push the boundaries as well.
I sold the wrong product to that customer, or they're using that product for the wrong application, so they want a reimbursement, so they're an unhappy customer. If you don't have a corrective and preventative action to what you're doing incorrectly with your customers, you're going to continue to do it over and over again.
So what you're saying is really capture the data from the, say, in the case of like return products or feedback from customers, that you can then go ahead and create a feedback loop into your production process to actually improve it for future customers, or if it's a process of providing a service or something like that, to make sure the right product ends up with the right customer.
Absolutely. So much so that every customer
Yeah,
review, when it's a bad, the failure mode is it hits you in a severity of impacting your reputation. So your reputation was failed.
yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
I feel like we should have like I think entrepreneurs should be able to have a fail mode. All right, I want you to fail at one thing. I don't know. We're going into fail mode right now. Obviously, you got to afford to be able to do this, and obviously, you've got to ensure that it doesn't impact the company in a negative way. I think it's a neat concept. Is this for your team? Like, you can fail more. So, anyway, just a thought on that one. David, welcome to the stage. Again, if you come on stage, I'd love to add you as a friend. And I know that those who come on stage often come back regularly, and we appreciate that. So, David, in your case, how has failure impacted your career?
It's helped my career because in this life, if you want to grow, you have to be willing to take risk. And Joe talked a lot about FEMAs, and that's tied to manufacturing. But in manufacturing in general, if you're not improving and striving for continuous improvement, meaning trying something different, you're going to get left behind. We're blessed to be living in the technological wild, wild west. And so as we adopt new technologies and processes and strategies and procedures, if you don't make adjustments to a process, or if you don't make an adjustment to the way that you handle and focus on improving yourself, meaning your career progression, if you're not willing to go to another department to learn a skill set that's going to allow you to continue to move up in the organization, or learn a new skill that's going to help your entrepreneurial endeavors advance, then you're going to stay in the same space, if that makes sense. And so in this life, if you're not willing to take risks, like I tell my children, if you're not willing to use your words in class and make mistakes and fail, you will not learn. My 2 cents.
Yeah, I like that. You're not just talking about entrepreneurs here. You're talking about everyone. Do they work for a startup or work for a big company, or even in school? Sometimes taking a risk on a particular project or something like that. It's a mentality. It's almost like a mentality.
That's where I'm going. You got to be willing to use your words. You got to go out here and try. From a startup standpoint, I started up a business last year, logistics. I got 25, 30 year plus manufacturing experience. There's differences, right? I have mentors that know, that have been doing logistics and doing shipping and trucking for years, but there's something called a refrigerated trailer, and a refrigerated trailer requires diesel fuel. I didn't know that. The 5 mentors that I talked to didn't communicate that to me, that this cost was going to have to be incorporated into the daily business model, and the understanding that I'm spending $2,500 to $5,500 a week in fuel when I'm driving over the road, as they say, OTR. And then I failed because, you know what? I ended up having a DoorDash. I ended up having a DoorDash to cover the fuel cost, because what you're not going to do is you're not going to have almost $500,000 worth of USDA beef go bad and be liable for that. And so I did whatever it took based on what I had and to win. But I captured and took copious notes. I understand the market. I understand that I'm not going to have my driver go down to Florida without something coming out of Florida. I understand that I'm not going to California because of smog laws and DEF requirements for the type of power that I'm using to drive or to pull the load. And same thing inside of New York. It's not worth my time. I'm going to stay in the Midwest. I'm going to leverage relationship with someone that has contracts while I work to secure contracts, if that makes sense, and then use load boards when I have to. And all those things you learn and you pay for that. I paid for it, but you know what? Once I do it again, statistically, they always talk about the highest percentage of failure, over 80% of startups, right? But they never talk about, typically, they don't talk about after you have the lessons learned and you're able to incorporate those back into your business model. You should be 36% successful if you do it again.
And we haven't talked about this, but what if it's too big to fail?
Uh,
Right? You said $500,000 in beef.
yeah,
It can't go bad. That's too big to fail. So there are situations where you got to make it happen no matter what. The show's got to go on,
as an
right?
entrepreneur, it's
And so that
24/7 and it always has to go on. And if you feel differently, you're in the wrong field because you're not passionate about what you're doing.
yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. It's not we're not just talking ego now. We're not just talking about a concept. We're talking about potentially millions of dollars. And I've been involved in those situations where this company cannot fail no matter what. And then what are we going to do to make certain it doesn't fail? And how are we going to apply the philosophy of basically fail more by testing more and find those winners, find those gems, and then scale the company and get ourselves out of this mode that we're in or the situation that we're in? Sometimes there is a situation though where the music stops and you have a catastrophic failure. And in my particular case, I was 29 years old, and we had a publicly traded company. We agreed to merge it with a cable company. It was up in Canada, and the stock went to over $1 billion. And the dot com crash happened, and very quickly, the Nasdaq started crumbling from 5,000, went all the way down to 1,200. We had to pull our $50 million offering, and fast forward only 18 months later, and unfortunately, my stock was all locked up. Mark Cuban sells his company for whatever X, and I ended up selling my company for 6 cents a share, my shares, and losing well over $100 million when I was age 29 years old. And then you deal with that failure and the shock that you go through when that happens, and you want embarrassment. Oh my gosh, it was like I couldn't even drive through McDonald's without them recognizing me. And it was a very difficult time and hard to get through. But I think the one thing that I did do is I looked back at what made us successful in the past, and I began to focus on what I continue to love, and that the love of technology and how technology can transform the world. That intersection between humanity and technology, I love that. And my brother and I loved it, and so we launched the next company. 6 years later, it became the fastest growing company in Canada, went public, and this time when we sold it to a Fortune 500 company, we sold it for all cash. We lost 98% of our wealth on that collapse. And obviously, it's not easy, but there's other things in life that motivate us other than just money. It's about why we do this as entrepreneurs and why we come back. That whole story about losing the $100 million when I was 29 years old, that was really the genesis of the book Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, which is now a global success story. Anyway, it's done very well, and it wouldn't have done well without that failure. Everything's connected. Everything's connected from the very beginning of the companies we start and what we do and how we go to the next company or how we make that next sale. Everything is connected, and we learn from it. And the smartest entrepreneurs are going to learn not only from their own mistakes, but from the mistakes of others in books like Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, or in books like Good to Great, or The E Myth, or Jeffrey Moore's Inside the Tornado or Crossing the Chasm. That's what entrepreneurship's about. It's a skill, it's a trade like any other trade that we need to learn how to master. And we need to learn how to master the trade of failure. Michael, give me an example, Michael. I want to hear from you here. I just laid it all on the line. I want to hear from you a story
I
of your one of your failures because you always talk a good shop.
yeah, look, it's failures. Boy, I've had so many. Like, I've had situations where I remember. was it about 2000 or something like that? I woke up one day, discovered that I got caught up in a global merger between two multinationals, and one of the multinationals invested in my company. And the next tranche of money I was supposed to be getting as part of an investment wasn't coming. And it was like instant disaster. Like the whole business plan was to drive everything down to zero in the cash flow, meet all the targets, and the next tranche of money would come in and so forth like that. So we put a hand out for it, and we're told it's not coming. We said we have a contract. And they said we know, but we've allocated $300 million in legal fees just to tidy up these small investments as part of this global merger. And it was catastrophic. I went from being a hero to a zero, one day to the next, from thinking nothing could stop us to screeching to a halt. And it was difficult. It was a really difficult time, and you're thrust into an intense cauldron of just fighting for survival. And it was like every breath was becoming difficult. And that was a tough time. You wanted to hear about a tough time, Colin, so I'm telling you about one. But there's one thing there's a few things I learned through that process. One is when you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror, make sure you still like what it's very easy during those times of intense financial pressure and all that sort of stuff that you make decisions which not in line with your character. And make sure when you look in the mirror and you like that you haven't damaged your character, but your character's gotten stronger through the process. That's the thing, is your character's gotten stronger, that you do the right thing at every single stage. And it's so tempting to, like, I was given a solution which would have involved me suddenly being able to better target pornographic advertising to like teenagers to get them into the porn industry and all that sort of stuff. And it would have solved every financial problem I had. Yeah, it would have solved everything. And I turned them down. I said, I can't do that. I'm not going to build something which is going to go and get my kids into that area, into the adult industry, and get cooked on that. And that was the decision I made. It was, and things like that. But it'd be very easy. Like we all have different views on that sort of things, but it'd be very easy to bend whatever character issues you have in your life, or to bend your principles in times of intense pressure. But then I looked through that, and there's a whole bunch of small investors and everything like that. And they, at the end of, we had to close the company down. Fast forward a couple of years later, I went back to those small investors and I said to them, look, I've got this thing you can invest in if you want. And they said, they actually said this. They said to me, Michael, we're prepared to invest in what you're doing because you did everything right before. And I said to them, can you excuse me for a second, and promptly burst into tears off the line. I put them on mute. I burst into tears because you wonder what people will think of you. You know, when people look at you, it's not they don't look at your size, your bank account, they look at who you are. When an investor is investing into a business, sure, they're looking at a business plan and everything like that. But as I said to my MBA lecturer in entrepreneurship, I said to him, tell me about the person. I can almost guarantee you the business plan will be right. Tell me about the person. Yeah, and it's so is it a failure when something just happens, a catastrophe happens in your business? Is that a failure? No, that's just life. Is a reflection on you. Your decision making is a reflection on you. Your circumstances aren't necessarily the case. That's not necessarily the case. I learned a lot through that period of time. One of the things you learn is you learn who your friends are. The second thing you learn is who you are, and you learn an enormous amount about yourself. To this day, when I hear of another business struggling or striving or something like that, I hear another entrepreneur, all I want to do is help them. I can't help it. It's all I want to do, and it's just because I remember those times when I went through that. That's long. It's in the rear vision mirror now, and I've got a great successful business now. It's doing very well and everything, and that's great. Colin, through every, it's very few, I think, entrepreneurs haven't been through the valley of the shadow of death in some sort of way. Very few entrepreneurs. The vast majority have been through the really tough times, but they actually do come out of the other side of the valley. And it's whether you come out as a stronger person or as a person that can't look in the mirror anymore. That's really the quintessential definition of entrepreneurship and a person's true character.
Awesome, Michael. That was a very good ending to that soliloquy. And
Mm.
we've been lucky today because we've had so many great people join us on stage, and we've got another lady who's here who's come on stage before, Renee. We're excited you're here because we want to hear from you as well.
Hi, Colin. Thanks so much. I haven't been on Clubhouse for a while, and I saw Joe in the room, and yeah, I haven't
He's a
seen him in
smart
a
guy.
while. And
We love
so,
Joe.
yeah, he's great. And this is like right up my alley because it's what I'm facing right now. The Renaissance, or I don't even know what you would call it. I took my inheritance that I got from my dad being killed in a car accident. I fought really hard with family over getting my fair share of it, and it was not easy. And when I got that, I was, I guess, maybe in a weakened state with a big vision, not quite enough money to bring it to fruition, and it failed. And I was in a room the other day with some folks, and they said, "No, don't ever use that word failure. It's just all about learning lessons." And I was like, "No, dude, it failed." Like, I had a vision. I did everything that I could, that I knew how to do to make it happen. I brought people onto a team and I had to let those people go. It was right before Christmas. It was fucking horrible. The whole thing was horrible. It was detrimental to my health in ways that I'm still dealing with 5 years, 6 years later. And yet, just today, I was talking to a coaching client and she brought up several, she's young, she's 22, and she brought up several things, several ways, problems that she's having with her own working world. And I knew exactly what she was going through because I'd been through those things before. I've been through those experiences before. I'd been through not having my shit together because I didn't know any better and having people take advantage of me. And I was able to advise her based on that. But I also have the experience of putting all of my money into a dream and having it fail. And I can be helpful to people around that now. Part of it is about how to get back up off the ground once you've hit it. And then part of it is how to look yourself in the mirror again. And then how to bring the next idea to the market and how to bring your in 1 hour I'm going to be pitching to a group of potential investors the new idea. And this time I don't have the money I had before to put behind it. I have to sell the concept, and part of what I have to bring to the table was that failure, because I don't want to do that again. The
So
hardest.
what I like about your approach here is you're really trying to you recognize what happened and you're saying I really did learn from it and this is really who I am, and you're helping others versus most people hide their failure. Most people don't talk about it. Most people don't come on to a podcast like this or even a clubhouse show or whatever and say I did this, and yet you seem to be comfortable with it. I don't think I'll ever I shouldn't say that because I don't think anyone's comfortable with it. I wasn't comfortable with my failures even from 20 years ago, but you seem to have a way of, I don't know, taking that and not only helping yourself but helping others.
I thought that I was such a horrible person that the only solution was to kill myself. That's how bad it was. And people do. And it's a big deal in the moment. It is a big deal when vendors are expecting payment and you have to let people go at Christmas time. Sucks. But it's not worth your life. Like, we can recover from it and we can learn lessons from it. If I can't and don't tell this part of the story, then actually people don't understand how far I've come and how much work that I've done to be able to feel confident to bring a new concept that's based on the old one to other people and ask them to invest their money and have the confidence in myself that I've put in the work to not make the mistakes I did then, because I don't want to lose my own money and I don't want to lose their money, and I want us all to profit. I want us all to share in the profit. It's a new, bigger, better vision. And so that's why it ain't easy to be able to use it as a lesson that you can help other people with. But there's so many people out there right now, one, not willing to take the risk, and two, not able to get back up off the floor. And they deserve a second chance. People deserve second and third and fifth chances, really, truly. So that's why.
And I'm just like in tears right now because first of all, like you've shared with us and been very open with us, about a very trying time and how it really impacted you. And I had a friend who about 18 months ago on Friday hit 100 employees, laid them off, and on Tuesday he lost his life to suicide. And it just brought back a lot of emotion, right? That it is in that moment of time, it feels like the end, but the reality is that individual who was relatively young and very talented could have easily started again and rebuilt something and been very successful. And in your case, you went through a very trying time and you made a decision to keep going. And I think as entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial books don't talk enough about the mental challenges of how to deal with failure. And I'm really appreciate that our show's been extended here by about 5 minutes, but I really appreciate that you came on stage here and shared that with us. Michael, I mean, I want to be really quickly here. Actually, before Michael, Renee, any thoughts on that before we close out the show? Just really, or Michael?
Yeah, look, Renee, first of all, it's a privilege hearing you share that story. It really is. And it's really difficult at times for entrepreneurs. And the pressure is intense. But you know what? Life does go on. Life does go on. And there is another side. Nothing is worth your life. No shame of failure, no catastrophic situation in terms of financial loss is worth your life. Your life is, and the life of every single person in this room, an entrepreneur, is so precious, so precious. And you know what? It's the entrepreneur that gets back up. And I think as part of your story there, Renee, you were saying that you're about to go along and meet with some potential investors for the next one. And I applaud you for that. I really do. And I think it's amazing that you're able to rise up once again. And it shows a degree of character, degree of gumption to move forward. And once again, I'd like to say thank you for sharing that story. It was wonderful. But over to you, Colin.
Over to you, Renee, for the last final. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate that. And you too, Colin. I think that is what we just have to have respect for one another and the mental toll that this can take and the realities of that mental toll. And I know that there are books written on this topic, but we just do need to be having more conversations about it. The judgment, abandonment, blame, and shame, the jabs we throw at ourselves and each other by dismissing the turmoil that people go through and just go, oh, stiff upper lip, and what people go through is real for them. And when we don't respect it, it just can lead to devastating losses that are beyond money. And
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, so I part of my work is on this. Part of my work is that we just help people understand what their underdog wounds are and how those drive us to prove ourselves. And when we fail at proving ourselves, how devastating that can be to our mental health, and that we need to just be taking care of ourselves and each other on this topic as well. So thank you so much for giving me the time and space to share this, and I'll be back.
Oh, we appreciate that. We really do. You've been listening to Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed. Yes, we are a podcast. Yes, we're a YouTube show. But we are also a live show on Clubhouse. And Renee and David and Shadows and Joe and our very special friend Michael and my co-host Michelle Van Tilburg and editor of Startup Club, Mimi Bender, and Kyle, who helps run Startup Club here. We appreciate you all listening to us. And by the way, Renee, we have now opened up Startup Club for contributors. If you wanted to write an article on this topic or anything related to your expertise, or anyone else wants to become a contributor to write articles for Startup Club, you can't use AI, but you can use AI for research. But if you wanted to be a contributor, we have now opened that up, and it's getting quite a lot of traffic. If you haven't already done so, sign up to that email list. We'll see you all next Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern. Bye for now.